Hey everyone, welcome back to Toasty TCG. So very recently I got first place at my locals with Eldlich. This is a very pure version of the deck. There's no Zodiacs, there's no Numerons, there's very little Dogmaticas. This is just a great version of the deck and I had a lot of success playing it so far. In this specific tournament, I played against Flunderies in round 1. This is a deck I've been playing the matchup quite a bit since the deck came out with one of my friends, so I knew it pretty well. There's a lot of points of just like removing their monsters, trying to negate their on-summon effects, things like that. I think the most difficult part of that matchup was when he summoned a Dark SamuraiX, and they also had a Dimension Shifter and D-Fissure in play. It was a really, really ridiculous board. The only way I had an out to it was by going Forbidden Droplet to negate the Dark SamuraiX, and then I believe I had Torrential, so that way on his turn, he summoned one of the level 1 birds, which caused him to summon another one, and then at that point I flipped the Torrential, so he was still forced to summon a level 1 out of his hand, but there was nowhere else to go with the play. And then on my next turn I top deck something like a Lightning Storm just to deal with the Dimension Fissure. So that worked out pretty well. Round 2 I played against Pure Lyrilisk. That was an interesting matchup. Seeing how the deck played against other people throughout the night, it seemed like a really cool combo deck, but unfortunately for them, I went first game 1 and had Skill Drain, and then game 2, for some reason they decided to go second, and I dug the Skill Drain out with a Pot of Duality, so Skill Drain really won me that match. It was super sacky. Then in round 3, I played against Sky Striker, Inspector Border, Skill Drain, Solemn Strike to stop Array. There's just a lot of things that Eldlich does that I feel like outperforms modern day Sky Strikers. So the matchup is definitely very interactive and interesting, but I just feel like Eldlich will eventually outpace Sky Strikers in the matchup. Round 4, I played against Virtual Worlds. This was where I actually took a loss. It was mostly due to Harpy's Feather Duster. I side 7 cards to deal with it, and I didn't see a single one either time that he had Feather Duster, so I beat him in game 1, then game 2 and 3 he had the Feather Duster. And now, that might just sound like I'm being salty about it, but to back up that claim, in top 4 I played him, and when he didn't see the Feather Duster, I won. And even if he had seen the Feather Duster, I had Judgments, so I was able to stop the Feather Duster had it been there. So I did lose game 1 of top 4 to him, but game 2 and 3 I was able to beat him, especially in game 3. The way that my opening hand was, it was just very one-sided, game 3. And then in finals, I played against the Sky Striker deck again. I won that matchup again, and I got 7 OTS packs for first place, and I pulled an Ultimate Permanence. So all around, it was a very good night, and this deck performed exactly how I wanted it to. So let's get into this match, into this deck profile. We already talked about the matchups. Let's get into this deck profile. To start with my Eldlich engine, I got 2 Golden Lords. If you're a longtime follower of my channel, you probably know my exact Eldlich engine. 2 Golden Lord, I feel like 2 is the exact number, 1 is not enough, 3 is too many. I don't know how many times I have said that about Golden Lord, how many Eldlich videos I've said 3 is too much, 1 is not enough, 2 is just right. 3 Eldland. If you've watched my 2 most recent videos, you know that I've been out of the game for a couple months. In that time, people have moved away from Cursed Eldland, but I still like it. The only thing that I can like figure out as to why people may have moved away from it is like we don't have Dryden anymore to pop the Eldland. But that's really all I can think of for why people stopped playing it. If you guys know how come people aren't playing 3 Eldland, let me know down in the comments. But personally, I still like the card, and I play some cards that kind of like mitigate Cursed Eldland. And what I mean by that is like when you pay 8, search a golden land. Say like you don't have Sanguine, so you pay 8, you have a golden land in your hand, and it's really just like a vanilla monster that's not going to do anything. I play some cards that kind of mitigate that, so it turns the golden land into something a little more useful, or gets the golden land engraved somehow. Speaking of golden lands, 3 Wakero, 3 Conquistador. Some people play 2. Personally, I just prefer 3 Wakero. Then 3 Sanguines. You don't need black, you don't need white, you don't need the counter trap. That's really all you need. Moving on to my Dogmatica package, if you can call it that. 1 Ecclesia, 3 Punishment, and 3 Nadir Servant. You really only play this engine for the Nadirs. It's just such a good card. You get to funnel out your extra deck effects, get Ecclesia, and then Ecclesia gets you a card that can destroy 1 or 2 cards, depending on what you send off of Punishment. And Nadir Servant kind of does the same. Nadir Servant can pop a card and then search you Ecclesia. Once again, depending on what you send. But this engine's really cool. Literally only play it for Nadir Servant at this point. You don't play the Maximus, you don't play Fleur de Lis, you don't play Schism, you don't play like all the old stuff that used to go into the Dogmatic engine. Just don't play it anymore. It's literally for the Nadir Servant. Moving on to just like generic stuff. 3 Strike, 3 Torrential. This is like an FTK against combo decks. Whether or not you go first or second, you let them like have their board, and then on their summon you go Torrential. Once they have like a full board, you go Torrential. They try to negate it, you change Strike. They can't respond, of course, so they just lose their whole board. Just really powerful stuff there. And then they're just like both good cards in their own respect, because this is another card that can kind of unbrick your golden lands, because you can use it in a very offensive manner where you just flip a golden land and then that lets you go Torrential. Just really good stuff. The few hand traps that do affect this deck, you have Strike for. Typically they're gonna like try to ash you. That's kind of like the only card that Eldlich has to be affected by. 3 IDPs. Once again, if you're a long-time viewer of this channel, I've praised this card countless times. Very, very versatile, very powerful. There's just so many ways to use this card. You can close out games, you can control what your opponent has in their graveyard, you can control what your opponent has in the field. Examples being are just like taking a miscellaneous store out of a dinosaur's player graveyard, stealing a Sky Striker's Ray. If your opponent tries to summon their Shen, you rip that out of their grave, and then you probably get to banish something too. This card has just so many uses. You can literally just take something big out of your opponent's grave just to have the body on the board. I cannot praise this card enough. Next up, the final trap cards, just the one-ofs. Skill Drain. I'm trying not to play Eldlich as a stun deck. I don't really enjoy the concept of stun decks. I'm trying to play in like an interactive manner, of course, with like trading resources with my opponent, interrupting them. But Skill Drain is just way too powerful not to play in this deck. It just complements the deck so much. So I play like a little bit of stun in the deck, but for the most part, it is still at its heart a control deck. 1 Trap Trick. This just turns into any trap in the deck. Well, any normal trap in the deck. What's really cool about this is if your opponent like activates an effect to summon out of their deck, hand, grave, something like that, you can chain the Trap Trick, set Torrential, and then when their effect resolves, they summon their monster, you can flip the Torrential right away. I think that's really neat. And then, of course, you can go like something like IDP or Punishment if you want. But Trap Trick, setting Torrential in response to your opponent's like E-Telly, for example, just really, really powerful. Speaking of really powerful, really versatile cards, we're on to my spell cards, with 3, and that's right, Ultimate Rare Forbidden Droplet. Shout out to my friend at Locals who helped me get this. This thing has been in so many of my deck profiles, I really couldn't avoid but get the Ultimate Rare playset. I love this card. It's just so good. It has helped me win so many games, so I had to bling this thing out. It's just, like I already said, super versatile. You can dump like your golden lands out of your hand to negate things. You can use this thing in the damage step. So if your opponent tries to run over like a versatile monster on your board, you can just go Forbidden Droplet to protect your monster in damage step. It's so good card. I really can't play a deck and imagine not having droplets in it anymore. Moving on to the pots. 3 Extravagance, 2 Duality. When it comes to having like the high-end staples, I feel like I'm typically on top of that type of stuff, but I haven't picked up a Prosperity, and right now I'm just not in the market for it, I guess. It's kind of ironic to say after I just flexed the ulti droplets, but yeah, it's just not something I'm picking up at the moment. So I'm playing the 2 Dualities instead, and the 3 Extravs. These are both great substitutes to Prosperity. If I had Prosperities, I could either play 3 of it over the Extravs or 2 of it over the Dualities. Or I can reverse that, where I could play like 3 Duality and 2 Prosperity, 3 Prosperity, 2 Dualities. You can get the idea. But this is really good. It works. These dig out like whatever I need, especially in game 2 and 3 when it shows me like my side deck cards. And Extravagance, just being able to draw 2 is, you know, it's still really good. Still very powerful effect. And then the final 2 cards. Double Inspector Border. I would have played 3, but I actually don't have a 3rd copy of this card, or at least I couldn't find a 3rd copy, so I only played 2. This is actually a 42 card deck. I really couldn't figure out what to cut, so I just said, whatever, I'm going to play 42 and we're going to see how this goes. But turns out 42 worked perfectly fine. Onto my extra deck. 2 Link Spiders. You ought to play 2 if you're going to run Extrav. Even if you play Prosperity, you probably run 2, just so like you can banish 1 and you still have your other Link Spider to work with. You know, just gets your golden lands in the grave. Very simple card. 1 Barren Blossom. When I was talking earlier about turning the golden lands into like unbricking them, this is one of the cards that I meant. You can Nadir Servant this away for Ecclesia, and then Barren Blossom draws you a card and bottoms a card in your hand. So you can use the golden lands in your hand as the thing that you're going to bottom. So for example, you can go Cursed Eldland, pay 8, search a golden land, Nadir Servant, dumping this, search your Ecclesia, and then use this effect to bottom that golden land that you searched. So essentially, for one time only, Cursed Eldland says pay 800, draw a card. I just think that's really cool. That's pretty much what I'm playing that for. 1 Phoenix, super generic, very versatile effect. I don't think there's much more to explain to it. Vampire Sucker. This card didn't come up too much. I don't believe it came up at all, honestly. But pretty much everything in the deck is a zombie, so there's no reason not to play it. If you make this, and then you get Golden Lord out of your grave with Sanguine, you get to draw a card. That's kind of all there is to that. Onto my access code engine, there is the 1 Lina, 1 Celine, and of course the access code. This is another package that didn't really come up, but I feel that doesn't disqualify its use. There was one scenario where making Lina would have gotten a light monster out of my opponent's grave, and I could have made the Celine, but I didn't have Ecclesia in the grave or on the field, so there was no value to get out of that. I didn't have any other monsters, like make a Link Spider and then turn Celine and the Link Spider into an access code. That was the closest I got in the whole tournament to going into access code. So yeah, it didn't really come up, but I still feel like it's just something that your opponent's not going to expect you to be playing in a deck like this. So I think it would just be like a really surprise factor sort of card. One BLS Link card is always really good in any deck that you play it in. Well, any deck that you should be playing it in. Of course, there's decks that this just doesn't belong in. But can't be destroyed or targeted by card effects when you summon it with your Golden Lord. And then after you link away your Golden Lord, you can just summon it right back. So now you have a 3k body that destroys something by battle, and during the damage step, banishes a card. That's really important, is that the effect to banish happens in the damage step, and it also doesn't target. So, for example, if this runs something over, and then you activate the effect to banish, and you, after you declare, like, this is a card that's going away, they can't chain it for, they can't go, oh, you're targeting that, I'm going to respond. They can't do that. And for another thing, if they have an idea of what you're going to banish, they typically can't respond with it. So, like, say, for example, if it's, we're going to use the same example, the E-Telly. They can't chain E-Telly to this. Say, like, they have just that set, and you run something over, they can't go, oh, E-Telly, before you try to banish, because you're in the damage step, and there's only, like, a few effects that can be used in the damage step. E-Telly, of course, not being one of them, so just really powerful. And, of course, you get your 35,000 attack Golden Lord to also run something in with. These are the other targets for Nadir Servant. The one-win Pegasus doesn't come up too much because Entis outshines it, but sometimes you just send the Wind Pegasus because there's nothing else to send sometimes. That's really the only reason. This could be a third Entis if you want, but I feel like this is a good ratio because, like I already said, there's situations where, like, you don't want to send the Baron Blossom, you don't want to send Entis, so you can just send the Wind Pegasus, and then later in the game, if they destroy one of your monsters, then I guess you have your Wind Pegasus ready to go. For my XZ monsters, one big gun, one bigger gun, and one big robot. This was actually supposed to be a Psyframe Lord Omega, but I could not find mine. I have no idea where my Omega went, so I was like, okay, I'll just turn my big gun into a big robot sometimes. I don't think this came up too much. I made a big gun in top 4 to force out my opponent's Chuche, and then after that, I just brought my Golden Lord back and killed them. So that was pretty much the only time I made Gustav, and Lieb never came up, and Zeus never came up. But yeah, this is supposed to be Omega, not Zeus. I might have sent Zeus to the grave off of Dogmatic of Punishment once. That was as much utility as I got out of it. On my extra deck, 3 evenly matched. Just a great card. I feel like this card is especially good right now. I don't think there's too many decks in the competitive meta that are just like hard negate cards, negate activation, things like that. So I feel like evenly matched is just really solid this format. You couldn't play Lightning Storm and Feather Duster too, but in this specific deck, I really do like the evenly matched. Next up is my anti Feather Duster package. 3 Judgment, Imperial Order, and our newest monster, Lord of the Heavenly Prison. This card is amazing! This thing is just super good. This is another card that unbricks your golden lands. Basically, what happens is you reveal it on your turn. Now, everything that you have set can't be destroyed by card effects as long as this is revealed, and it stays revealed until the end of your opponent's turn. Now, if at any point a set card, it doesn't have to be yours even, if a set card is activated, you can special him out of your hand. And if he's revealed by his effect when he's specialed from your hand, you can set any spell or trap right out of your deck. So basically what you want to do with this is play your back row cards, and then after you activate, like, usually you want to do it on before you lock yourself with Senguin or on your last spell or trap. You summon your your Heavenly Prison, and then you can set, for example, you can set like a Nadir Servant out of your deck, so now you have your play starter, but you can also just set like some Ignorant Trap card. You can go like, I'm going to set an IDP out of my deck. It does kind of telegraph what you're going to do, but being able to just set a spell or trap out of your deck is just really busted. This card is incredible. It offers protection. It's an extender. Really great card. And then, of course, there's the Three Judgments and the Imperial Order. Again, just anti-Feather Duster, anti-Lightning Storm cards right there. But definitely, I do like Heavenly Prison. I think this card is a must. You gotta be playing this in the side, or you can even main it if you want. But I cannot feel like... I don't think you can go wrong playing this card. This thing is phenomenal. Definitely pick it up now because it's super cheap. I think last I looked, the card's like $15, but I can definitely see this card going way up in the future. So make sure you pick this thing up when you still have the time to do that. Moving on to Lightning Storm. This is pretty much just self-explanatory. Back row, hate. So you can just wipe out your opponent's back row. But you can also use it against decks where it's like maybe like a combo deck, but they don't set up like negates. Just another way to like you can just board wipe your opponent. I think it's you mainly just want to use it for the back row, but you can use it against monsters sometimes. And then the final side deck card is 3 Lava Golem. This deck doesn't really need its normal summon too much. My version only has 3 normal summons in the entire deck. So Lava Golem is a phenomenal card. Just wipe out monsters on your opponent's board for pretty much for free. And then you can remove this thing later on with like a Torrential Conquistador. Maybe even an IDP if you can. A Dogmatic Punishment, Nadir Servant pitching an Entis. This card is great. Highly recommend it. So that is the entire list. As I mentioned before, this list won me my locals on Saturday. I pulled an Ultimate Rare, Infinite Impermanence, so that was really cool. And everything just went really well. I had no like real complaints about this deck. The only time that I lost a match with it was mostly due to Harpy's Feather Duster. So I feel like this deck didn't go wrong. I didn't feel like there's any point in the tournament where there's a card like I really regretted having in here. Only thing that I want to change is putting Zeus out of the deck so I can play Omega. Because I have no idea where my Omega is, so I don't know, help me out in the comments, maybe give me some suggestions on where I may have put this Omega. Also, let me know what you thought about this deck profile, my matchups, things like that, any kind of questions. I hope you enjoyed this profile. Description below has my Facebook page, the Discord, the TCG affiliate link, all that cool stuff. So check that out too. But for now, this is going to be Toasty TCG signing out.